We all are aware about Truecaller. The application has over the years evolved a lot from a mere calling application, from payment to spam filtering and many more. Truecaller offers a lot. But at the same time, the application faces a lot of perception problem. Is it private and safe? Is it a Chinese application? Today we have Hitesh from Truecaller to answer our and everyone's question. Welcome to HT Tech.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Hitesh, is Truecaller a Chinese application?
So we are not that there's anything wrong with being Chinese. That is at least our opinion. But this perception came about a few years ago, and there was a list put out by the government that there was an advisory: don't use these Chinese applications. And Truecaller was unfortunately by mistake included in that list as a Chinese application. So that is one of the areas where that perception comes from. However, Truecaller is Swedish, always has been. And the problem is that we actually have Sweden and India operations now at this point. So we are actually an Indo-Swedish app, if you want to call it, because the development as well as Truecaller employees are based primarily in Sweden and in India. So in fact, as of last year, there are more people in India compared to Sweden for Truecaller. It's a small company. We are about 230 people, but about 120 of those people are based in India. And we don't have Chinese investors either. So, this is a question that we get a lot on social media, for instance, that, okay, you may be having some sort of links, even if you are not a Chinese app per se. To those people, we direct them to our board and management page. So if you search for Truecaller board and management, that lists, who the investors for the app are, lists down who the board members and the management team is. So it's public information. You can go there and check. Even our offices are listed. We have actually, and the largest office for us is in Bangalore. We have an office in Delhi, in Gurgaon actually, one in Mumbai. There's a really small office in Nairobi. And of course, the head office is in Stockholm.
So, what are the ways you try to dispel all these rumors or some sort of a myth? So, what are the initiatives the company takes to bring this transparency for users and maybe interested users who want to join Truecaller?
So, for people who want to join Truecaller, of course, we have there's a careers page. If you just search for Truecaller careers, you will find it. Being a small company, we don't have very extensive, we don't have phone support, but we do have active support available on email and as well as on Twitter, Facebook. There are verified pages there. And there's also a Truecaller help page on Twitter. So if you reach out to us using those pages, we can provide all the information that you need. As users have a lot of problems sometimes because there are so many different phones, different software versions. The app can work a little differently on different software versions. So we address all those problems there. We have very active blog. So if you go to truecaller.blog, we try and address a lot of the common issues or questions that people have there. There's a lot of tips and tricks. There's a lot of fun videos that are there on the blog. So there's a lot of, in fact, on the blog also, we have a section called Insights. So if you go to truecaller.blog and go to the Insights section, we do a lot of research throughout the year. And you'll see all of that research is available on the blog. It's available to anyone for free. And you can go and read it. So one of those that a lot of media refer to is called the Global Spam Report, for instance. So it's survey based because we can't really track users on an individual basis, and we don't do it in any case. So we reach out to them via surveys instead, and we ask them, how did you get spammed? Where was the spam originating from? So it's interesting if you look at the Global Spam Report, it tells you country-wise which are the countries that are spammed the most. So for instance, the reason why Truecaller is so popular in India, we call India as home market for Truecaller actually. So not just our employees, a bulk of our users are also based in India. About 70% of Truecaller users are based in India. And we have, if you want to talk about active users, we have 170 million active users in India alone. So, if you go to that insight, you'll see that India was one of the top spammed countries in the world. Maybe to 2018, it was number one. As of 2019, it's dropped a few places. Other countries like Brazil, Indonesia have sort of overtaken India in terms of overall numbers. Not to say numbers of spam have gone down, it's still going up. But India is not the top spammed country anymore. There's a lot of interesting stuff there. How numbers sort of get leaked also is something that's of a lot of interest to people.
This brings me to my earlier question that one of the perception is that Truecaller is not safe. It collects a lot of data. So, how do I, as a user, know that Truecaller is not collecting my data?
So that very pertinent question. So I think one of the things that people get a little scared about is permissions. And the way that Android works, you need to ask for a lot of permissions upfront. And the reason for that is that Truecaller has a lot of functions within the app, right? It's the caller ID and spam blocking is just, of course, that's the core feature, and that is, a big part of the app and what we do. But there's a lot of other things. For instance, there's VoIP, so internet calling is there, instant messaging is there. You have the ability to make payments through UPI. You can now apply for instant digital loans as well. So you just apply through the app, you get the loan directly, the amount into your bank account. Because of all of these things, there are certain permissions that are required. But let's say if a user does not want to use all these features, we say, okay, there are some essential permissions and there are some non-essential. So what we did is, one of the first things we did in this space is something called the privacy overview. If you look at any app or any service that you are subscribing to or taking use of, their privacy policies usually go into pages and pages and pages. Nobody has the time or inclination to read 20,000, 30,000 words. So what we did is we put a simplified privacy policy of only 4 paragraphs. So if you go to truecaller.com/privacy, you will see these 4 paragraphs of how Truecaller works, how we make money, what are the permissions that we need, and there are a lot of FAQs also over there. So if you want to find out which are the non-essential permissions and you want to disable them, you can do that. We tell you how. If you want to unlist yourself from the Truecaller database, we show you that also very clearly how to do. So the privacy policy is a great starting point for anyone who is interested or wants to know more about privacy, because the biggest misconception that Truecaller has is that people think if you install Truecaller, your phone book gets uploaded somehow. And the reason people think that is because the app needs access to your phone book. But there's a very simple reason for access to a phone book, because Truecaller is not just caller ID, right? It's also a dialer. You can dial out from it. You receive calls. You can have a full screen caller ID if you want on your phone. So if you don't have access to the contact book, a dialer app will not let you make calls. It's as simple as that. Also, let me give you another example. For instance, your spouse or your significant other, you saved that person as wife or girlfriend, for instance, in your phone book. But it may be that that person has a name on the Truecaller database. So when you receive a call on your device, Truecaller will first give preference to what is saved in your address book, not what is there on the Truecaller database. So these are the 2 very simple reasons why the address book or the contact book permission is needed. It's not to upload. So there is no uploading of contacts happening at any time. Actually, if you look at the policies of Google Play Store and Apple App Store, it's not even allowed to upload user data like that. And in fact, apps can get kicked off the Play Store for even smaller infractions than that. So we would like to be absolutely clear that we just don't do something like this. And, uh, we have to communicate it through our social channels, through the videos that we make, and through friends in the media as well.
On this, like on a very lighter note, I want to understand how we get to see all these funny names for all these spam callers and maybe some sort of rider or some we get to see some hilarious names. So how does that happen?
So the way Truecaller works is that the database is user generated. So because we have a large number of active users in India, they are the ones who contribute, who tell us who's calling, uh, give correct names, or mark as spam as well. So let me give you an example of a spammer. Let's say a spammer gets a new number, okay, and starts making spam calls or unwanted calls to somebody. Depending on the number of calls that spammer is making, within an hour, literally, that number can get marked as spam for the entire Truecaller community. So you need to have an active system like that to be able to beat spam. A static list or a spam list or a telemarketer list will not work. It has to be the users who tell us that this is spam. Of course, there are quite sophisticated algorithms that sort of decide what is spam and what is not based on user inputs. So now we come to the names. When you receive a call, at the end of it, there is something called an after call screen. We call it ACS internally. And that's where a name is also shown to you that, hey, is this name correct? Was it actually this person who was calling you, or was it somebody else, or was it a spam call? That's where a user has the opportunity to just with one tap say this was spam, right? If they feel like they can input a name, this was a credit card spam or telecaller, this was electricity company, this was so and so, whatever, they also have the opportunity to input a name. Now this is also a challenge where we don't want sort of unwanted names or lewd names or abusive names to be there. So there's a constant filtration process. Of course, we have some automated systems also that prevent misuse of that kind. We want only the actual names of those people or those companies there, even if it is a spammer, because that's what really helps the community. Now, as a user, as a receiver of a phone call, if you are informed beforehand that this is a credit card spammer, you will know. But if it's some funny sort of name or some abusive name, you are not fully informed. So it's a constant back and forth, like a cat and mouse game that we are playing, trying to correct all these names. But it's the users who are putting these names. So it's a little tricky situation there.
So one more thing I wanted to understand about the way a Truecaller functions on because as an Android user, I see it is working very differently. Say for a person who is next to me on an iPhone, it works very differently for him or her. So why there is a discrepancy of the user experience on both the platforms?
This is again something that we as a team have been working on for a long time. So iOS, there are certain platform limitations on iOS when it comes to Truecaller. So let me give you an example of caller ID, right? Live caller ID, which is the most important thing to help you avoid fraudsters, scammers, spammers. The way it works is when the call is coming in, that number actually has to be taken, matched with something in our database, and displayed in real time while the call is happening. So that live caller ID is not possible on iPhone because of platform limitations. So there were two workarounds that were done for this. One is something called call alerts. So call alerts is a feature that we announced on iOS first. It's now available on Android as well. So what happens is that uh, there's a pop-up before the call connects telling you who it is. This works if the other person who's calling you is also a Truecaller user. So it works from Truecaller to Truecaller. And the call alert is therefore a workaround for live caller ID on iPhone. The other thing available on iPhone is the widget. So if you are on iOS, you can install the widget to the left of your home screen. And if you copy a number, a 10-digit number, or even if you add the area code 12 digits, if you copy a number anywhere, it automatically gets pasted into the widget of the iPhone. And then you can just swipe to see the widget and you'll see the name of the person or whoever visited a spam call, etc. in the widget. So I don't know if you know, but iOS 14 also there was an issue with the clipboard. Recently, there were a lot of reports. iOS 14, of course, is not available to public yet. It's in a beta stage right now. But what it does is it pulls up apps that are accessing your device clipboard. So Truecaller is a device does need to access the device clipboard for this reason, because otherwise, how will you copy and paste numbers from an SMS or a WhatsApp or an email? You have to copy those numbers into the Truecaller app to search for it. Or in case of iOS, if you have the widget, it is automatically searched. But the clipboard access for that is essential.
All right. So one more thing that is there, that if such a large directory and large user database, do you think there can be some sort of a misuse if such platforms say stalking? If I want to say look up my number, if someone wants to look up my number and he can just search my name, do you think how do I as a user protect myself, and as the company what tools it gives?
So Truecaller has always been a one-way search, right? You cannot search for a name and get a number. You have to have a number and then you get the name. The reason behind this is very simple, because I'll give you a very simple analogy. It's the knock on the door. If there is someone on your front door who is knocking, you have a right, you deserve to know who that is before you open the door. So simply the same way, we believe that if somebody is calling you, you have the right to know who is calling before you answer the call. Because it could be you need to prepare yourself for it. It could be that you don't want to take the call, whatever reason, but you deserve to know who it is. So primarily that is the function of Truecaller, to identify who's calling. Now, search, yes, is a function that's built into the app. So as a registered user, you can search for numbers. But if you try and start searching, a little too much, or if you try, let's say if you're a person who wants to sort of build a database, you write down a random string of numbers and you start inputting it one by one and trying to find out who it belongs to. Very quickly, the system will realize that there is some misuse happening, and it will put a stop to that. It will curb you. So a legitimate user who is actually protecting himself or herself from spam will not run into these kind of limits. But somebody who's trying to misuse or game the system will be very quickly found out.
All right. This will be my last question to you. And this is something you just said also. You have been in journalism for so many years and you have covered technology from the beginning, especially in India. So, first of all, one thing I wanted to understand, how is the life on the other side? And the second thing, how do you, now that you're on the, from the brand, or maybe say from a technology company, how do you see technology as evolving for mass users, and how soon we will see a lot of cutting edge tech becoming mainstream for end users and mass?
So, coming to the first part of your question, you're right. I think we've known each other now maybe a decade, I guess, could even be more. So yeah, journalism is all I've done, right? I studied journalism, filmmaking, photography, advertising. That's what I studied, and that's what I started working as. And over the years, working in different forms of journalism, I did magazines, I did TV, I was in, we were doing testing of products. So I realized that very early on that PR and corporate communications on one side and journalism on the other side, they're both like two sides of the same coin. We kind of support each other, we need each other. uh, One cannot work without the other. So that support and mutual respect is really important from both sides. By and large, it exists. I'm like really happy because I know a lot of friends, colleagues from the media who have, who understand how and why PR works. And if you have that understanding of how PR works and how corporate communications works, even as a journalist, you can actually make a switch. And it's good to try new things. When Truecaller reached out to me last year, 2019, is when I joined Truecaller. It was a challenging sort of prospect to kind of completely change fields from something that I've been used to. I was in my comfort zone for a long time, but I said, let's do it. And actually, the transition has been really easy. More so because we've got such a great team on board. We're a small team, very cohesive team, a very supportive team. So Truecaller is 230 people, right, globally. But within that, we have like small business units and we have smaller breakout teams. But everyone is so well adjusted, so well adapted, such a team player that it really anyone can adjust to this. Almost like I would say in a month is when you are completely adjusted to this style of working. And it's important, of course, to have contacts and friends in the media and the industry, which luckily I have, because I've been in the industry for so long. I consider myself an old hat because I've been around for now in journalism for 17 years. So it's good to see things from both sides. That's what I would say. Now, second part of your question, you were talking specifically about tech. I mean, can you just elaborate a little bit more on
Yeah.
that? What?
So now that you're part of a tech company, and how do you see the cutting edge technologies becoming mainstream and becoming available to everyone? You can see a lot of now, because for instance, you can talk about mixed reality that has been, been talk of the town until recently. Do you see a lot of democratization of such technologies happening in the near future?
So I think first of all, the current situation has sort of thrown everything out of whack, out of gear. When this whole pandemic started, even a lot of our plans have sort of been scuppered. So uh, I'll give you an example that we actually were planning to launch this refreshed version of Truecaller, which was a new app, a whole lot of new features. We had a large launch event planned for it. We wanted to call a lot of people. We wanted to talk about it. None of that could happen. Instead, we had to do a virtual launch where we invited friends from the media. We did a presentation. We had an interactive session, one-on-ones, all of that stuff, but everything had to happen virtually. So that is going forward, that's actually going to be the norm, right? I mean, we really don't know how long the situation is going to continue, but that aspect of it, the way we work now, the way kids go to school, the way we interact, I think those kind of things are fundamentally changing. So you're right. I mean, a lot of these technologies which have been around, I mean, first we had VR, then AR, now mixed reality is coming in. And I think it has a lot of interesting applications. For instance, if you have mixed reality glasses, who's to say that Truecaller can't integrate into them, right? You're just walking around your day normally, you receive a call. You don't need to pull out your phone to see who it is, right? You should just be able to see in your vision somebody's calling, or if it's spam, just get rid of it straight away. So, I mean, I think almost any app or any new app that we are using these days has some sort of functionality that can be, that can take advantage of mixed reality. I mean, even you have your maps, you have email, you have all of the other things that we use on a daily basis. I think it's an interesting field, but we are still maybe a year or two away from actually seeing mainstream use for it, maybe. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for talking to us and taking your time. It was very much enlightening. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much for doing this.